high time to get back to some crochet. I'm about a good 90% back to normal now. My throat occasionally goes a little bit croaky, so I have got a cup of water here ready just in case, or I might have to start the video, something like that. But it's fine generally. I've still got some antibiotics to take yet, but it is getting there, thankfully. But my head is wanting to do so much. I've got crochet ideas coming out everywhere. I have videos to do for you guys, for the dolls, for the crochet, for absolutely everything. So it's time I got some work done. And this, I'm just looking down, is what we're going to do first. Ta-da! We have a cute little Chinese lantern. Now, whether you celebrate the Chinese New Year or not, I think it's still quite a cute addition to your home. You don't have to do it as sort of blingy as I've done. I did happen to have some gold double knit yarn. You could use just a sort of a goldy colour, but I do think it does make it pop a little bit. So if you have got some of that, it does make a difference. You can decorate it how you want. I popped a little bead on there, but entirely up to you. You can pop a little face on it if you wanted to, make it a little bit more kawaii. Completely up to you how you do it. But this is in UK terms, don't forget. It is in a double knit yarn. It is so super easy. And this is what we're going to do in a second, top down. And I'll tell you all the other information as we go. So I will see you in a second. Thank you for watching. Well, here we go with our little Chinese lantern here. As I mentioned, it is so easy to do. And I also mentioned, don't forget UK terms. So if you do need a conversion chart for your patterns, this is a pattern I will get written up as well. That's something I've got to do this afternoon. But again, it is so simple. You might not even need a pattern. You could probably just follow it on YouTube. Although saying that, I like patterns. I must admit, I have a collection of patterns. Even if I don't sort of follow it that way, I just like collecting patterns, I think. So I have added a little bead, and as you can see here, I have this little box of various gold beads that I've got my beads all separated up, so that is what I picked from there. So I might pick something different from the next one, so I'm going to leave my box there. In fact, I'm going to shut my lid, because no my look, the cat will come in and jump on it, and I'll have beads everywhere. I have a double knit yarn, obviously a red double knit yarn, and this is the gold I was referring to. It is actually a Rico. It says Rico Design, I don't know how you pronounce Rico Rumi Lame. Now it does say it is a double knit. That is why I have used it. And if you look, to give you an idea whether it will work with a double knit, usually look for like the hook size here. It's all sort of all shiny, so it's all over the place, isn't it? And it does indicate you can go from anything from a 2.5 to a 3.5 millimeter hook. So that sort of gives you an idea that it will suit a double knit, but it does actually say DK. I can't even remember where I got these from. I know I got them in a sale, and they got gold and silver, and I bought like a bunch of them. I thought I'll use them one day. Now it's time to get used. Now I did mention a 3.5 hook. That is what we're going to be using. You see that okay there? Everything's reflecting, isn't it? I have a little stitch marker and my needles, my scissors, also some toy stuffing, which is what you do need. I do use a toy grade, sort of a proper toy grade stuffing, so it's safety issues there, because you do have to think about that as well. And I've got my pen and paper to one side. I think I've got everything else. I have my cup of water here, because as I mentioned, my throat is okay. I'm still a little croaky, I think. It doesn't sound too bad, I hope. But every now and again my throat gets really dry, or I start coughing, so I have got my drink next to me. But yes, my throat's getting way better. I don't know, well, some of you may not have seen, but I have obviously disappeared for about 2 weeks. I started with a viral virus, and it turned into a bacterial infection in my throat, so it's not been great, but I'm back to normal. So many things to do though, so much to catch up on. So I was going to start with my new year amazingly, and then it all went, oh, but never mind, I'm here now. I'm lucky to be able to get on with all this, so let's get going. We're going to start with the body of the lantern first. So obviously we're going to be using our red, so I'll just move a couple of other bits to one side. We'll just leave our little lantern there. So this could not be any easier. We're going to start with our slip knot, like we start all our crochet. Make sure it is a nice slip knot, so it does actually move onto the hook, but not too tight. We need some movement there. And we're going to start, as I start all my amigurumi, because this is an amigurumi sort of shape that we are doing, I'm going to start with 2 chain. So there's our 2 chain, and into this first chain we're going to do 6 double crochets. Remember, UK double crochets. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. We're going to be doing an increase round next, which is going to be 2 double crochets into each of those 6, obviously then giving us 12. Red does have a terrible glare with the camera, so I think perhaps it might be worth watching the video and just listening to me perhaps, and then getting on with it, because I'm sure if you're used to crochet you're going to find this easy enough, but I do believe a beginner can easily do it as well. Just need to maybe take your time a little bit more. So into that first stitch there, I'm going to do 2 double crochets. So that's our first with 2, our second with 2, our third with 2, so we're halfway. Number 4 has 2, number 5, and we've got one more, number 6. Right, so we now have 12 stitches. I'm just tightening up that slip knot from the center. To be honest, if that wouldn't tighten up, which sometimes perhaps if you've caught your knot, it doesn't always do it, because we've got a little bit of a cover top and bottom, you're going to get away with it. Normally I would say, you know, you've got to make sure it's tight because you don't want holes and things like that. We're going to do another 2 double crochets into each of these 12 now to give us 24 stitches. So here we go. 2 in the first one, 2 in number 2, in number 3, in number 4, in number 5, almost halfway, in number 6, so it's 2 in every one, remember, so that gives us halfway, so keep going, in 2 in number 7, 2 in number 8, in number 9, number 10, number 11, and just one more into our number 12. We now have 24 stitches round. We are going to do another increase round. Up to you, but I am going to pop my stitch marker in now. If I was sat silent doing this on my own, I wouldn't bother with the stitch marker at this point, but obviously because I chatter, I sometimes lose count of where I am. So I'm going to pop my stitch marker in early. I have a little pussycat. Could have done with a tiger, because it's going to be the year of the tiger for the Chinese New Year, well, when it becomes the new year. But I suppose it is a little bit of a gingery kitten there. He's got gingery stripes, so we'll see he's a baby tiger, shall we? So here we go with our next round. It is another increase round. You're going to have 2 double crochets in this first one, and then a 1 and a 1. That's our first set, and you're going to do that 8 times. It will give us 32 stitches. So we're going to start, make sure, sometimes you need to stretch it. Can you see, if I'd not stretched that, I'd have jumped in here. So I need to stretch it, and I can see, there is a stitch there. So you do have to watch that, because you will lose stitches. So we're going to have 2 in our first one, and then a 1 and a 1. That's set 1. We need to do that another 7 times. So 2 in our first one, a 1 and a 1. That's set 2. 2 in the first one, a 1 and a 1. That's set 3. I hope. So this is what happens. I talk and then I go, did I say 3 or did I say 2 last time? That's why my stitch marker's there. I'm saying 3 for now. So 2 in our next one, and then 2 single one. Shouldn't say the word single. It's not a single, because obviously problem by saying single is it confuses matters, because in the US a single crochet is our double crochet. So if I say the word single, it sometimes puts people off. So if I ever say it, it is never ever a stitch I am going to use, because we call it a double crochet here. So don't think it's a different stitch. I've done it again, haven't I? I'm going to say this is 5. 1, 1, and set 6. We have a 2, a 1, and a 1. Oh, it looks like I might have counted right. Set 7, a 2, a 1, and a 1. Nearly lost it there. And yes, I was okay. A 2, a 1, and a 1. Now at this point, oh, I've pulled that off the camera quite a bit, haven't I? Let me move myself. I don't know why my camera seems to be a bit over there. I'm sort of pull myself back into the center there. So basically, I'm going to take my stitch marker out a second. We had a round of 2 double crochets in 1, then a 1 and a 1 all the way around, times 8. So they were little sets times 8. You should have 32 stitches if you wish to check at this point. I'm not going to overly worry about that, to be perfectly honest with this, unless you want them all very, very much. Say if you're doing a set of them to maybe hanging decorations or bunting or something like that, you might want them exact, but it wouldn't really matter if they were different sizes. So if you did lose a stitch, this is one pattern, you can get away with it. But now we're going to be doing just double crochet rounds, so this bit's going to be easy. So I'm going to pop my stitch marker back in. You may want to sort of just speed off with your double crochet rounds if you're wanting to do that. I have done 6 rounds, so we would do 6 rounds. Now what I've considered doing, because I said I would write a pattern up, I might write the pattern up for two sizes even. Don't quote me on that. That depends on how it goes, but I did quite like the idea of a small one and a big one, because the thing is, if you did a large one, you can have sort of different layers of lanterns, because if you look at images, there's all sorts of shapes and different layering, so you can play about with it. You can sort of make as many ball shapes as you want with that. So off we go. I have my pen and paper at ready, and I'm going to be doing 6 rounds of 1 double crochet in each one. In fact, I'm going to use this first round as a way of counting to check I did have enough stitches, and I'm going to try and stay in the center. Here we go. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. We're doing okay up to now. Looks about right. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Oh, nearly lost the stitch there. 20. So let's hope we've got another 12 now. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 20, nearly caught it, 26, my yarn nearly split then, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, yeah, that does me nicely, 31, and 32. So I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to mark that off as my first of the 6 rounds. Now, if you are a beginner, you're finding something's a little bit faster, try and sort of keep my crochet at an approximate sort of level. If I'm crocheting myself, I am a lot faster than this, but I'm somewhere in the middle. Some people think I'm a bit fast, some people think I'm a bit slow. It's really hard to get that balance because everybody works on a different level. If you are having problems with the speed, you can alter that in your settings, or sometimes, like I've mentioned now, you're doing 6 rounds, just pause it, do your 6 rounds and come back to me. That's another way of doing it to make it nice and simple. So I'm going to speed up a little bit more now, because as I say, I'm just going to be doing 5 more rounds of just 1 double crochet into each of those stitches. I'm not going to count this time either. I'm just going to rely on my stitch marker. Now remember, it's a good idea to sort of move your stitch marker, what, maybe every 2 or 3 rounds, because with it being a spiral method of crochet, it will actually very, very slightly alter your start position. If you ever want to check that out, make sure you literally count your stitches all the way around each time. Don't move your stitch marker, but do that, just do it on count, do that for maybe 3 or 4 rows, and you'll see your start point is slightly different from where you began. So we're almost round. You can see it's already starting to curve a little bit. Let's see what we got. Line it up with that stitch marker. 1 more. So that's already 2 rounds gone. So we only have 4 more to do. I was just thinking it might make quite a nice prop for my smart doll, this, if I do a sort of a Chinese New Year theme. photo shoot, so I might have to do that. She does have a gold and red beautifully fitted dress that I got from Bella's Doll Clothes, so that would look quite nice. So I might have to think about doing that. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have to be for Chinese New Year. It's just a pretty lantern if that's what you want. I'm not sure whether I'm going to do any more towards this theme. I thought I might do a little fortune cookie. They're quite simple to do, and to be honest, I did one years ago. I made a miniature one. In fact, I'll have to find it out if I do the big one for my book Mini Amigurumi, and that was quite cute. So I did it actually so you could do it as jewellery. We could do that, couldn't we? Fortune cookie earrings. How does that sound? The only thing is I used a very fine cotton before. I would probably maybe able to do it in a 4-ply for people, because I know not everybody has the finer yarns. Right, round again. Perhaps we could do a couple. We could do a chunky one as a decoration and then maybe a fine one for some jewellery. Off we go again. This is our round 4, so we're almost there already. That went quite quickly, and as soon as you get past this 6, we're going to be decreasing anyway, so it goes even faster. As well as an easy make, this is quite a quick make. I'm going to have to pause to take a little drink. Bear with me a moment. So my throat is a lot better, but it does get really dry, and if I let it go dry, I'll start coughing, and then I'd have to probably pause the video for about an hour because it's on and on and on. Almost round, and this is our round 4, so there's only 2 more rounds after this one. If you did this in a 4-ply, they'd be rather large earrings, but you could actually make this into a jewellery form as well. Right, so that's round 4. Round 5, I'm going to move my stitch marker up. Are we ready? For my pretend tiger stitch marker there. Off we go for round number 6 of just double crochet rounds. It's not round number 6 from the beginning. That's something you do have to watch for. I do separate my pattern, well, when I'm just showing you like this, I sort of separate my counting up into sections rather than rounds as a pattern would. When I make my patterns, they will be in rounds, so you would know where you were for this, because obviously you need to tick them off. But if you're only doing it like this with YouTube, I think just say which section we're in and do so many of each section. I think that's an easier way of describing it. Nearly back to little stitch marker. Where are you, little pretend tiger? There you are. He thinks he's a tiger, even if he's not, even though he's a cute kitty. I think all cats think that they are tigers and lions, really, don't they? Right, one more round. And then we're going to be starting to decrease. I think I must have, like I said, got my camera sort of perched just that tiny bit further over, because I'm having to sort of lean over to do this. I'm going to think about readjusting it for the next video, because there's nothing worse. I know some of my early videos, I was a nightmare. I'd like constantly be pulling it down, because I'd be pulling the work towards me where I'd naturally work, and not realising it wasn't staying in the camera view. So most of the time I think I'm all right now, but yeah, I did notice towards the end of that point. So sometimes it's definitely worth listening to me before watching me. Nearly there. You can see we've got a proper little basket shape now, so it's really curved round. Yep, there we are. So that is actually the plain rows, round should I say, of DC have just been 6. So we are there. We've got that bit ticked. I'm ticking that bit. We're now going to start decreasing. We don't need to stuff yet. Leave the stuff in until as little as you can. Sort of the hole is really tiny because it does get in the way of your crochet, and it drives me mad when you pull a bit of stuff in through because it's really hard to get rid of them. Our next round though, it's going to be 2 stitches together and then 2 individual double crochets. I'll do my first together slowly because I know some people do it in different methods. Do it however it works for you, but this is what I do. I go in, I pull it through. I don't complete that stitch. I go into the next stitch, the second one, pull it through. I now have 3 on the hook. I'm going to grab my yarn and I'll pull it all 3 and then I tighten. Okay, that is my 2 double crochets together. Then I'm going to do 2 individual ones, a 1 and a 1. So that is set 1, and we're going to do that combination 8 times. So remember, I'll do it nice and slowly. 2 together. Yeah, pull it through all 3, tighten it. 2 individual. I mean, really good. I'm actually going to mark this down rather than chancing to me remembering where I am. Right, that was 2 sets. So 2 together. So if you've got 3 on the hook, you know you're going to work. Pull it and tighten it. And 1 and 1. That's our 3rd set. We're going to have 1, 2, pull them together, tighten. Single. Oh, I nearly said that word again now. Single, individual. I will try and use the word individual rather than single. Right, so that's 4 sets. So 2 together. 2 individuals. That's our 5th combination. We have 2 together. 2 individuals. That's number 6. I don't need to count now because I've only got 2 more sets to do. So 2 together, tighten, a 1 and a 1. 1 more set. 2 together, tighten, and a 1 and a 1. So we're round, and you can see how it's starting to curve back round. It's just a ball we're making. It's a slightly squat ball, but it is a ball. That's all that you are doing. I'm going to just move my stitch marker up again because when decreasing it definitely changes position. So here we go. We're going to go on to our next one, and it's going to be another decrease. It's not, I'm fibbing. We should now have 24 stitches. Like I said, I've got my piece of paper here. We're going to do a double crochet round. So just 1 double crochet into each of these 24 stitches. Back to the stitch marker. Off we go. So it's just 1 double crochet in every one of those stitches. Oh, the dog's clattering on the laminate. Oh, she's come to lie down. She's got a bed next to the radiator in here, so she quite often joins me. I made she took so long this morning because it's certainly a little bit chilly today. So frosty and foggy this morning. Did look most strange at 4 o'clock this morning. Almost back to the stitch marker. And yes, the next round is going to be a decrease round. I should read my patterns before I tell you what I'm doing, shouldn't I? I've got no excuse when it's sat next to me. And back to the stitch marker. Ta-da! Right, so we are doing a decrease now. I promise you we are doing a decrease. We've got to anyway, because otherwise we can't turn it all back in. We're going to do 2 double crochets together and then 1 double crochet. And again, that's a set of 8. So let me move a little tigery out of the way. So 2 together. Remember what we do for that one. Yep, and then through all 3 and tighten. And then 1. That's our first set. Again, I'm going to mark some of these down to make sure I count properly. We're going to do 2 together, tighten, and 1. That's our second set. 2 together and 1. That's our third set. I think I'll remember where I am now. 2 together, 1. That's set number 4. 2 together and 1. That's number 5. 2 together, 1. Number 6. 2 together, 1. Number 7. And our last one, 2 together and 1 is our last set. So you can see it's definitely closing in. I'm just going to pop that in there because that's getting in my way a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of the stuffing in, but not too much, just to sort of hold its shape at the bottom while I continue. I'm getting to tangle there, aren't I? Right, push that in. I don't want the stuffing near the top because, as I say, it catches in your work and it is just really annoying. So I'm going to push it right down so it's nowhere near where I am actually stitching. We're going to be doing more decreasing now. We should have 16 stitches at the moment. So fingers crossed you have. And now we're just going to do 2 together, 2 together, 2 together. Oh, wait, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going until the hole has completely closed up. So we don't need our stitch marker in anymore. Off you go, little tiger. And let's start with these 2 togethers. So 1 and 1. Bring them together. Really important you do tighten it now, else you end up with little holes if you're not careful. So 2 together, tighten. Not so tight that you can't get in the stitch, but it's got to tighten it a little bit. 2 together, tighten. 2 together, little tighten. Starting to squeak the wool now because it's getting tighter to work into. So you can see the hole. I might maybe do another one before I put any more stuffing in. Right, I'm now going to put some more stuffing in. I've left it as long as I can. If you don't want to leave it that long, you can stuff it earlier, but it's just, as I said, that the stuffing can get in your way. It's amazing how much stuffing this tiny little thing takes as well. I know if you've made toys and that before, sometimes you make some and it's larger and you think, oh, it'll not take much. You buy a bag of stuffing. Yeah, it looks about right. You start stuffing it and then you need another bag of stuffing because look at this. Already it's eating this stuffing like I don't know what. You want it pretty firm, this one. So you don't want it sort of overly squishy because we're going to be putting this yarn round it. That's probably about the same there. Probably that's about right. So I'm going to leave it at that. Apart from that, I've got to carry on doing my 2 together. So push that in as far as you can go. So again, we don't catch it. And let's get going with our final 2 togethers, 2 togethers until we're closed. So here we go, 2 together, tighten. It does get harder as you're doing this. This is why, as I say, it's important to tighten because you'll find your stitches get looser if you're not careful. I know mine have, and they do sometimes still, but most of the time I can keep it a little bit more controlled. 2 together, tighten, and then we'll get away with just one more, because remember it's going to have a top and a bottom on it, so you're not actually going to see where you finished. Tighten, and even though we're not going to see it, I like to finish off with my slip stitch. Ta-da! We have our little red ball. Just grabbing one of my needles. I have 2 different size needles here because I wanted to thread through that big bead, so that's why that one's there. I'm just going to get rid of this piece of yarn now because we don't need it. So let's get it out of the way. So we're just going to thread it through and thread it through. I do find when you've made something like this, it's good to sort of give it a little roll about, little squish, sort of get it into shape. It's quite malleable when you're doing crochet. You can sort of push it into shape a little bit. So that is the base of our actual lantern. I'm not going to do these bits yet. We're going to just do the tops and the bottoms with this sort of quite shiny gold metallic lame yarn, whatever you want to call it. It is quite nice. It does feel, if I take a bit of the double knit, if you look, it does look slightly thinner. But it is still a double knit. You will find that anyway with a variation of yarns. So let's get going. Slip knot. Can be a little tricky to work with sometimes when you're using a lame. It's a little bit rougher on your fingers. It can pull a little bit, so don't do it too tight, otherwise you won't get it through at all. So we're going to start with our 2 chain, and into the first one 6 double crochets. You've got it. So take your time. You see how that's tightened up there a bit? Let me just pull it out. There we go. So that's 1. A little bit harder to see the stitches as well. Worth it though. 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So that's our 6. Now can you see that almost looks impossible? You're thinking, well, where on earth are my stitches? They are there. Look closely. You can see that's a stitch there. You can see them. Sometimes you need really good light when you're working like this. We're going to do 2 in each one. So 2 double crochets into each of those stitches. Make sure you are getting the full stitch because you don't want it to look messy when you've finished. 1 and 1 in that first one. In our second one, 1 and 2. In our third one, 1 and 2. In number 4, 1 and 2. Number 5, 1 and 2. And in number 6, 1 and 2. Right, so tightening up, because I do need that relatively tight, although I am going to be pushing some yarn through some of this, so don't make it mega tight. In fact, don't worry too much about the top one, but the bottom one is perhaps you do need it more like that. We now have 12 stitches, and all we're going to do is 2 rounds of double crochet. So we're just going to count 12 because we've only got those couple there. So here we go. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It seems to slip through your fingers differently as well. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So that's round 1. We just need 1 more round. You see it's curving round now, so just push it round. Makes it a little bit easier for you to do. So 12 more stitches. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, halfway there, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and tricky one, and 12. And I'm going to finish with my slip stitch. So there we go. Nearly did a double crochet, not a slip stitch then. Leave enough yarn here because we have to sew this onto this little ball here. So nice sort of length of yarn. Probably too much, but it's better to have too much. You can always add in if you run out when you're sewing up. It's a pain. So we push it out. You can see we've got like the little crown that sits on top. Again, it looks like just a plain bauble, doesn't it, at this point? So we're going to do another one. I know I don't normally do, if I've got sort of more of one thing, I normally just do the one thing. See that, pop that there before I lose it. But because of putting it together, I need to have done top and bottom for yourselves. So off we go again. 2 chain, 6 double crochets into that first chain. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. 2 double crochets into each of those 6 to give us our 12. Again, look for that first one, be careful, make sure you are getting the full stitch, not a part of it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 2 more to do, 2, 4, that's 5. Oh, hang on, where's that last one? It's there. And that's 2 in number 6 as well. So we have 12 stitches now. Just semi-tightening that up. You'll find with this, when it's tightened up, it's very hard to shift because it's obviously got all these little metallic threads in it. But it's quite a good one. I find it hasn't broken. You know, you use some metallic threads and they just snap, and that's really frustrating. This does seem quite hardy. So we have our little sort of flat piece. We need 2 rounds of 1 double crochet into each. So we've got 12 stitches. So off we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. We have 1 more round to go. So again, it's curling, just push it out to stop it doing it, and our final 12 stitches on this. In fact, this is the final piece of crochet. So we've got 1, 2, nearly caught it, 3, 4, 5, nearly there, oh, 6, we're halfway, I'm never drinking a minute, 7, I can feel it going, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So we're round. I'll just do my slip stitch to finish and make sure I've got enough yarn to sew it on. There we go. So now we have the tops and the bottoms. Quick drink time. I promise it is water. Oh dear, that feels a little bit better. Now we need to be putting it together, and I think the thing that makes it is a simple ball, but just these lines is what makes a massive difference. Instantly it becomes a lantern. If you're doing it in orange with a different yarn, it instantly becomes a pumpkin, as my daughter pointed out. She is right. So let's just move these over here because I need to do these bits first. So again, I'm using whichever contrast yarn you're using. Now make sure you've got enough here, because I did half of it and then I ran out, so then I had to add. It's not a big deal to add. Sometimes it's easier to work with a shorter piece of yarn. Entirely up to you. I prefer to sort of try and work with a longer piece to get it out of the way, so I've only got 1 strand to sew in. But if you want to do it in 2 parts, you can do it. I might end up needing 2 parts, yeah. But as you can see, it's quite a long piece of yarn, this. I don't know, I'm trying to work out roughly what we're looking at. 12, 24, probably about 35 inches there. But again, you can work on that differently for yourselves. I'm going to start where I finished, so in the bottom here, but then I want to come out exactly where I made that first little hole. So pulling it all the way through, make sure it's not going to come out. We're going to just take it across the ball, back in the hole, and back out of the hole. Don't pull it tight with this. When I do the pumpkins, I do pull them tight, but you need it tight enough so it's going nowhere, but not too tight that it's pulling the shape. So now I want to go exactly across. There we go. So we have 2 halves, and then I'm going to half it again. It's like making a cake, sort of dividing it up. So we're into quarters, so down this side. You could do each panel as you want, but I find I get myself a little bit more even doing it this way. Pull the right bit through. No, not that bit. That bit. There we go. So again, making sure it's all comfortable tightness at this point. So now I'm going to go in between each of these quarters to make it into 8ths. I did that right, didn't I? My maths is not my strong point. No, I know it's 8ths. I really do. Right, so looking good. Looking good. So again, each time I'm going straight across from where I've just been. I think I might only just have enough yarn here. not the camera. Apologies for that. If you're going to look a bit dizzy now. So let me get that one straight, make sure it's in the right position, and another quarter to go between. I think I'm going to run out. That's annoying, but never mind. I suppose it gives me a chance to show you. Or am I just going to get away with that, do you think? Just. And again, I can see I've got a bit of a big gap there, so I'm just moving that across because I want them relatively equal. Now, if you've not done them too tight, you can do that. So I'm actually going to finish here because I think I'm going to run out of yarn. I would have preferred to take it all the way through and fasten off there, but it won't really make a huge difference. So I'm going to just do it here. Because remember, these middle bits are going to be covered, so it's not the end of the world. Try and make it neat, though. It's always good to be neat. Just because it's an area that's going to be covered doesn't mean you shouldn't be. So I'll fasten that off, and then I'm just going to push this through like we normally do to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. That one didn't want to go. Again, I could have done with a slightly longer piece of yarn. So now we have this. Now again, I can say, well, that's a bit wider than that one, but because I've not done it too tight, I can move it over. But like I say, it doesn't want to be loose, so it's sort of flapping about either. It is important to sort of get it sort of comfortably tight over the piece. Now for the tops and the bottoms, simple enough. Now because we have the middle bit, I usually use that middle bit just to position it. I'm not using that bit of thread, but it helps me position where I'm going. So by doing that, so I've threaded the piece that comes through the middle there, and I'm just going to push it through because obviously we want it really in the center, don't we? There we go. And I'm not going to do anything with that for now. I've just let it go. It just holds it approximately in place for me. And then using the other bit, the bit that we finished off with, is to sew it on. I sew it together like any other. You do need to be careful if you're using the metallic though. I'm going to sew it about halfway around. I'm going to put a tiny weeny bit of stuff in here. You don't need a lot. So I'm just picking up a little bit of the red, a little bit of the gold, and I'm just going to be doing that all the way around. So a little bit of gold, a little bit of red, all the way around. Keep going, keep going, keep going until you leave a little gap. Let's get into that one there. There we go. You can see how it's sort of fitting on now. Yep, so I need a little bit more than that before I do it. So I've gone gold and red. Sometimes it's hard. I'm trying to stop pulling it towards me because when I sew up, I do pull my work very close to my body. It's a little bit weird sewing so far with my hand stuck out. Right, let's have a look. Right, we've only got a tiny gap now. Yeah, so I'm just going to take a tiny weeny bit of stuff in. You don't have to, you would get away without it, but I just think it gives a little bit more to the shape. I'm just use the hook to push it in. Go on, in you go. All the way in, because we don't want bits of stuffing sticking out. There's a needle to push it in as well if you need to. Oh, there we go. Couple more stitches, I think. In fact, I think that might be the last one. One more. Where's it going? I can see that's where I started because I've got a bit of yarn sticking up there. So I'm going to say that is it. I'm going to fasten that off. Careful. Again, don't pull it too fast when it's this metallic because it'll knot where you don't want it to knot. And that is really annoying. So pushing it through a couple of times. I'm just going to push it through the gold. I don't need to push it through the red. And fasten it off. So that is that bit. I'm saving that bit because it'll work for the actual handle. In fact, no, I'll not put it on yet. It'll get in the way. We can just cut that bit off now because that was just holding us in place. Now, in the bottom, we're going to do the same. I'm just going to use this middle bit to position. Let's have a look at the time. Oh, we're going 42 minutes. That's not bad, you know, because I am doing extra for sewing up, which I don't normally do with your doer. So, because I can't go through that bit, I'm just going to hold it like that. Now, for this, can you see what I've got here? This is where I pulled this little bit through for the tassel. So, I don't want to sew it on completely because I'm going to take the tassel from the inside of this. Bits of yarn everywhere. Make yourself a bit tidier. Right, so I'm just going to sew a couple of stitches on to just position it, okay? So, because it's already coming from the gold, I'm picking up the red first. And then a bit of gold and a bit of red. It reminds me a little bit of those pin cushions that they used to have. In fact, I think you still get them. They don't look like tomatoes. I can remember my grandma having one off, and I was absolutely fascinated with this pin cushion. Right, I'm not going to go any further because it's going to be hard to get in there. I need to be able to get my yarn, my red yarn, through this hole here. So you know that centre hole there. So I'm going to grab X amount of, now with this I did 3 strands, then I folded it. You can do as many as you want. And so the design can change from now. So if I've got 3 strands of approximately 12 inches, but you are going to be cutting them down quite considerably. It's just a little bit easier if they are sort of the same length. So I'm just going to tie a knot. Okay. Now this is where the big needle comes in, because I can't get 3 strands through the small one. So pop it through, and hopefully this is going to work. Because I have changed the idea of what I did from the last one a little bit. So this is a bit of an experiment, to be honest. So I think I made it a little bit too hard on the other one, so I decided to change it. So you've got your knot here. So that knot is not going to pull through. So we're just going to find centre hole. Yeah, centre hole. And we're going to pull it bit through. And then you might have to just wiggle it through. Yep. Because the knot will stay in there. Hopefully. That's what you want it to do. So that is one side. We now need to get the other side through. This is again why I've used the thick needle. I hope this is making sense. This is the hardest bit. It's okay writing the pattern up for you guys as well, so I'll write the pattern up. That bit's a bit longer, isn't it? And then it's describing how to do this that is the hardest bit. The pattern's the easy bit. Ta-da! Yep. So instead of through the centre, I want to take it just slightly through to one side. Can you see? Because I don't think I'm going to get it through where that is. If you can get it through there, that's great, but it's not really going to make any difference. So you can see we've got the 2 pieces that have come through now. So because they're now anchored nicely in there, this one's still on its needle, I'm going to continue sewing up. This does get in your way a little bit, I'm afraid, but it's only for a few more stitches, isn't it? So you can see how that's moved there, so I can just move it across now. That's the problem, when you're actually sewing things together, you can move them. So I'm picking up a bit of gold and a bit of red. A bit of gold and a bit of red. Looks like somebody's ponytail at the moment. Let's see, I've not put stuffing in it. I've not really needed to because there's yarn in there, so it's okay. Look, I'm round. I didn't even realise I was round it. So we can just fasten off, finish off there. So make a little knot, make it sure it's nice and tight, make sure it's not going anywhere, and push it through our gold, and push it through the gold. Right, just bear with me a second. Hi, just a quick drink pause then. Let's get on finishing this. As I say, we were just threading it through, weren't we? So I think maybe one more time. The metallics do catch better than a normal, so they don't usually go far. Oh, not the camera again. Right, keep still, camera. Keep still. It's really good, this stand, but it's really bouncy. That's the problem. So you can see we have our top. Oh, we can get rid of that one, can't we? Because that was one that's holding it in place. And we've got where our fringe would be. Now, what I did here now is I made a plait, basically. That's why I did 6 pieces of yarn, so I could make a little plait. Now, I'm only doing a small plait. I've actually got a vise, which is really great when you're doing plaits. So for things for the dolls, it's really good because it holds it in place, because it's hard to do a plait sometimes when the other thing's moving. But I only want a few. I only want a few strands. Now, I don't know if this is going to hold, because last time I did the... I did the plait, then I did a knot, but I want to put a bead on, don't I, like I finally did. So let's choose a bead. You know, I'm going to go with the same one because I want it to sort of match so I can make a pair. So this is a little bead I use for this. I got loads of these gold beads because we did a cosplay once that required lots of gold beads. So that is why I've got them. Didn't think I'd use them, but I have ended up actually using them. Now for threading on this needle is fun because there's a lot of strands. So do a few at a time. That's that bit. This is why you want these needles with really big holes. I think my plait might have gone a bit skewy now, but don't worry about that, we'll sort it out afterwards. Ta-da! So they're both on the needle. Make sure they are flat because otherwise they won't thread through, and they hopefully will all go through together. Look at that. No, they won't. That's a pain. Can you see that? If that happens, just take half out, because I know it did do it with 3 earlier, and put it back on. Yeah, you see 3 goes through nicely. So we'll do that again. I was just trying to be clever and getting it out of the way a little bit quicker there. I'm probably making this way more complicated than it should be. So pull that all through. Sometimes you have to do a little strand at a time. Are we all through? Now, can you see it's pulled a bit messy there? So now I need to make sure. So I'm just going to move the bead down and pull each individual strand nice and neatly through so I can position it. Now, as I say, I've lost my plait a little bit, which is a bit annoying. So I'm just going to push the bead right to the top. I'm going to do a bit of a plait now because you can see part of it's there. I think perhaps a plait was not a good idea. Right, so I'm back to my shape there, so I'm going to do a little plait. You could just do the strands of yarn. To be honest, I wish I had now because that would have been much easier. Let me move that down, see what it looks like. Yeah, that's okay. Push it back up because I want to do a knot here. Now you could put loads of beads on and then you get away with all the plaiting bit. Perhaps that would have been a good idea, have a strand of beads. So I'm making a knot, and again, when you've got lots of strands like this, knots can be a pain, so don't rush. Make sure it's in position before you actually tie it, because otherwise you get a lumpy knot, and that's not good either. That will do me. Pull it really, really tight. Trim it off. Can be a lot longer than that if you wanted to. And let the bead drop down. Now it's pulled that a little bit, so we just push it back into place. It doesn't take a lot of doing. Now I have made it shorter. I'm going to do that again because I want it the same length as that. I don't know why I cut it that short. And I'm just going to sort of separate up each strand, because I like doing this because I like it when it goes curly. Like that, can you see? So I'm going to do that with every single one, and it will get that effect for you there. So I will alter that because I think I pulled it through too hard. Can you see? Don't presume because I do something it always works. It really doesn't. In fact, I'm just going to push it back in there. Just a little bit of manipulation makes it so much neater. I suppose I could leave it shorter. Seems a shame to have to undo it all and redo it, doesn't it? Now, as far as the handle is concerned, I've gone back to this one. You can use the large needle. It won't make any difference for this. And I'm going to thread it through, so like the bottom part here. Don't want it all coming through, we just need 1/2. Decide on your length, tie a knot, snip it off, and I'm just going to manipulate that round and round till the knot is inside the top bit so you can't see it. So as much as I made a bit of a bodge of this bit here then, essentially that is our Chinese lantern. So take your time when you're doing this bit. If you've got some red embroidery thread, you know, that would look quite nice. I have got some red embroidery thread, but I thought, well, not everybody does sew and knit or crochet, so they might not have embroidery stuff, they might only have yarn things, so that is why I did it completely in yarn. So but yeah, I think an embroidery thread would look really nice, and if they're all separated out, I'm going to leave them at 2 different lengths, or just trim that one down. I think I'll trim that one down. I'll make it easier one way or the other. So that is it for our tiny Chinese New Year lantern or Christmas decoration for next year, if you want. Or next year, we're actually in 2022, so it would be this year's Christmas, but we have quite a few months for that yet. So thank you very much for watching. If you do enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe and share. It means the world, and I hope to see you very soon. I've got some doll crochet coming, I've got some doll reviews, etc to share with everybody, and I will see you very soon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye for now.